Hello, you are listening to From McClay to Zama. I'm your host, Karen Miller. This podcast is about the adventures of two women from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, who worked for the U.S. Army at Camp Zama, Japan, from 1953 to 1955. Their stories are told through hundreds of letters written home. Episode 31, Hurricane Helene. I gave myself the advice in my last episode not to take hurricanes too personally. I'm afraid that's not going to work this time either. But this was another horrible one. My first experience with hurricanes was Hurricane Agnes in June of 1972. It brought horrible flooding, destruction, death, and misery to my hometown of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Even though I was young, I'll never forget the work, the heat, boats instead of cars on the streets, and the sights of dead animals everywhere, and smells of fuel oil and mud and death. My childish brain conflated my grandparents' divorce, Watergate. I thought that the flood happened because someone left a gate open and the river flowed through it. The Munich massacre, that didn't happen until September 5th. And the flood, which happened in June. It seemed like it was the end of my little world, rowing up in a boat to my grandparents' home, my grandfather standing on the porch with a rifle to ward off looters. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand that things would eventually be repaired and rebuilt, that life would go on. My second hurricane was Hugo, September 22nd and 23rd, 1989. I was due that week to have my first baby, wondering if I would be able to make it to the hospital if I went into labor. I couldn't sleep. I paced. I was living in Raleigh, North Carolina, which was where the hurricane was supposed to hit after Charleston. My brother was in Charleston, riding out the storm in a hotel. Well, we got some wind, but the hurricane decided to hit Hickory, which is where I had previously lived and gone to college instead. My brother answered a landline phone at his hotel during the eye of the storm. When I called him, I was so worried. Everyone survived in my family, and my baby girl decided to wait until October to arrive. Back in Hickory in 2017, the winds from a hurricane spawned a tornado that dropped 3 trees onto my house, destroying half of it. I was driving, trying to get home, and I saw the tornadoes come across Highway 321 in front of me. It was literally like the tornado in The Wizard of Oz. Things flying past me, things hitting the car. It destroyed hangars and airplanes at the airport. And my assistant producer, Zeke, his cat Peyton, my 2 other cats, and my standard poodle Gracie were all in my house. I was shaking, but I went in to find them to see if they were alive. I was so afraid they would be dead. They all survived, but not without the terror of the storms that now equaled mine. So this week, Zeke, Freya, and my 3 cats and I got to experience Hurricane Helene. Terrified for my Hugo baby in Atlanta, which was supposed to be where it was going to hit, I didn't have much energy to worry about the storm or about it hitting the mountains and foothills where I live in North Carolina. I was grading vocabulary quizzes in the basement den when the trees started falling in the dark about 7 a.m. The ground shook, but it didn't hit my house. I texted with my neighbors to find out where it had hit. And then the fireworks came when the transformers started to blow around us. The power went out, and Zeke and I cuddled on the floor in the dark. Freya wasn't concerned. It takes a lot to concern Freya. The wind blew and branches fell. Things bounced off the house and fell over and made loud noises outside. The creek behind the house roared, and huge trees floated down and hit the bridge. The sun never really came out until about 11:30 or 12. I texted with friends and family until the phones quit working, and then we were just really alone for a while. The phones not working was frustrating and scary, and just suddenly being without the ability to find out what was going on. I found a radio in the garage, but couldn't ever find any stations with people talking about the storm. It was quiet except for the helicopters. They started pretty soon after the storm was over. The power was not restored for 6.5 days at my house. It was hot and humid. I heated water on the propane fire pit to bathe and to keep my fish alive. I lost one of them. It was too dark to read in the house, even during the day, and the bugs were horrible outside. It was humid and hot. We had only candles and flashlights for light. We slept when it was dark. We were invited to friends' houses for dinner and showers if we wanted to take them. Life went on for most people here in the foothills. Many lives were lost in the mountains. Many still are missing. One of my favorite places on earth, Swannanoa and Warren Wilson College, were in one of the hardest hit areas. People are still suffering in the mountains, and Hickory has become a staging area for the relief effort. Being located near the airport, the sound of helicopters has become the norm. It is a blessing that so many people are giving of themselves and their treasure to help. The night of the storm, Friday night, I lost my friend Maddie. Aunt Peg loved Maddie, a talented artist and musician. Ben, Maddie, and George came through Harrisburg on tour once. I think it was 2013. And they put on an impromptu show at the Homeland Center where Peg and Bern lived. Music was one of the biggest joys in Peg's life. You can tell that from the letters. It was right around the time that Bern died or was dying. Certainly a difficult time for Peg. She was so happy about meeting Ben and Maddie and hearing the three of them perform. She thought Maddie was just adorable and always asked about him when we talked. Later, Maddie was diagnosed with MS, like Peg. His artwork, he always did Inktober and just did great, happy, joyful drawings. He always reminded me of Peg and how much she loved him and thought he was adorable. And Maddie had cancer that had spread by the time they figured out that his symptoms weren't MS. He died with his friends and music around him. He was 48. Storms are going to come. We're forced to face them with as much love and strength as we can manage. Take care and pray for those impacted by Hurricane Helene. I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and if you are, please subscribe in Spotify. On Apple Podcasts, hit the plus button in the top right-hand corner and rate. This will help my listeners find my podcast more easily. You can access the show's website at www.FromMcClayToZama.com, where I've posted photos and links from the episodes. The podcast is now available on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Patreon, and Amazon as well. New episodes will be available each Friday morning. The letters were written by my aunts Bern and Peg, transcribed by me. I write and record the show and have created the artwork and original music. Our producer is Zeke, our sound engineer is intern Sylvie, and the security is provided by intern Frey. Thanks to my great-grandparents, John and Helen, who loved us all and thought it was a good idea to save the letters. All rights reserved, 2024.